the voice of the Boston Celtics for NBC Sports Boston. I'm talking, of course, about Brian Scalabrine. Scal joining us here for the first time in the new iteration of the show for the first time of this season. Scal, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to talk with you, Scal, and thanks for coming on. A beatdown to start the year. Let's go through it all. I mean, from the ring ceremony, the banner getting raised, Tatum saying, let's do it again. And then as soon as the game tipped off, basically, first possession, the barrage started and it never stopped. Did that go about as well as it possibly could have? I mean, could anything have been better last night? Breaking the record, maybe?
Breaking the record. Sam Hauser, in the interview, he's like, I think we're the first team on ring night to win by 30 and get booed by the crowd. I thought that was hilarious. But, no, they look great. And I think you could talk about the threes because, these guys are going to make shots. They're going to take a ton of them. But it's the ease at which they did everything, the appropriate aggressiveness. When they needed to attack, they did. The star players seemed to find that great balance. I thought last year at times, as good as they were, what is the balance of being unstoppable offensively and, you go out there and you move the ball? And I thought Brown and Tatum did that well. If I was being critical, which is really hard to in that game because we dominated, you saw Joe Mazzulla use Tatum with that starting group. That means Jaylen Brown's going to be playing with, a quote-unquote, kind of like a second team. I'd like to see Jaylen Brown, continue to show, the world that he's a top 10 player by – kind of doing the same thing that Tatum did, taking the reins, getting downhill, attacking, moving the ball, knocking down shots. I think he's trending that direction, but I think that's going to be a real key to having a tremendous season is going to be to both those star players being able to carry each group kind of on their own.
Scal, do you believe that Tatum indeed had a hitch in his shot, and do you believe last night's performance puts any talk of that to bed?
I mean, I thought he had a hitch in his shot throughout his career, and I think he's working up to get rid of it. And I think it looks a lot quicker, a lot smoother. He's sitting down in the stance more. His body movement's absolutely zero until he snaps his wrist. So, I mean, it's slight, and he's an All-NBA player. But I really like this about him. He went to the offseason and said, you know what, I need to work on my shooting. I want to improve my shooting. And when you can improve the speed of your shooting, that means you can shoot the ball off the dribble with more confidence. And that's what it looked like in that game. As soon as a guy dropped his hands, that ball was gone. And, there was very, very, very little body movement when he shoots that. So I do think his shot from just a form standpoint has improved.
Scal, the Knicks were supposed to be the team that challenged the Celtics this year. I know it's 1 of 82, but that was a pretty decisive victory. And the Knicks, according to a lot of people, and me included, and I think you'd agree with this too, they went out in the offseason and tried to put a roster together that was going to be able to compete with the Celtics or knock off the Celtics. Same with the 76ers. A couple other teams had some big off seasons here as well. Is any team going to challenge these Celtics this year? And if so, who?
We're going to the Knicks first, right? I've said it before, and people thought that I am wrong. I thought they were better last year. I thought their identity was kind of tied up into offensive rebounds with Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. And obviously Mitchell Robinson's not out there. And I know you go get Karl Anthony Towns, who's a better, quote-unquote, player. He's making $50 million. He's a better offensive player. But I just thought that their identity was something that was difficult for us to handle. So I wasn't one of these guys that look at the Knicks and say, oh, that's going to be the toughest team for us. Right now, unless they don't have a fabric, they don't have an identity, they have to kind of figure that whole thing out. So once they do, then we'll reevaluate the Knicks. Philly, they're always injury battled, right? So I don't look at Philly right now as a competition for the Celtics. One team I think is kind of a sneaky team is Orlando. I think Orlando could be fun, could be something there if we were to match up in the playoffs. I don't know if we'll match up in the playoffs, but the way the Celtics are playing right now, obviously, yes, it's a small sample size. It's one game they played amazing. But if they're doing that and Tatum and Brown are playing like this, then they're not going to lose this year.
Oftentimes this time of year we talk about, things that could go wrong. What are the challenges a team faces? But this is a defending champion that has guys in the prime of their careers, guys that are now going into the second season playing as a core. Where do you think there's room for this Celtics team to be significantly better maybe this year as it chases another title?
Yeah, I think there's room for the bigs to be more consistent. So that'll be Cornette, Tillman, Cada, right? Like those guys. They're going to get amazing opportunities with Porzingis out and Al Horford. They're going to manage his minutes. But I think there's room. It's not about being better. Like Cornette's awesome, and Cada has had his moment. It's about being consistent. And then there's a thing, like I can attest to this because I wasn't that great of an NBA player, but when things aren't going your way, can you still be a good player? Can you still contribute to winning? And that's like the next step to being a guy that's like, a fringe player, a guy that's kind of finally finding your footing in the NBA. But those guys, when things are going bad, when Cada is going against Joel Embiid and he's got 2 fouls against him, can he right the ship, right? And that's where I think like there could be some room for improvement. I think Hauser and Pritchard are kind of past that. Like if they miss a few shots, I don't think they'll be gun shy, but the big position will be a position that they can kind of shore up, and they'll have an opportunity to kind of play through those mistakes. Like at times, usually when you're healthy, Cornette has a bad 2 minutes. He probably doesn't get back in, right? Well, now he's going to have to kind of fix it as he goes, fix it on the fly, as we would say.